welcome back to That Happened. I forgot the name of our podcast for some. Yeah, okay, there we go. I have a hole in the crotch of my pants, so I'm just gonna keep my legs closed because I'm starting grad school again, and I'm a grad student, and I'm poor, so I only have one pair of pants. So I'm buying the new pair before the next one. So next episode, I'll just be all wide-legged. To really, so yeah. Anyway, I'm Arash, one of your hosts. This is
Max. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. No, I'm excited because on the bus I was like, I actually can't man spread because I have a hole in my pants. So I'm really excited to man spread again. So yeah.
I can't think about anything else. You're just like distracted.
Yeah. I mean, obviously everyone's gonna be watching this just to catch my sweet boxers. My balls just coming out of my leg. That's what they want. My old man balls.
Yeah.
So sorry to, people always think the best of people who host podcasts. Sorry to spoil the magic for you guys. No, this is episode 4. Sorry for the delay. We had a really busy weekend. So, but we're back at it. So yeah, we have some good shit for you guys. All kinds of history, all kinds of profiles on people in history. So yeah, I don't know, because Max, you had a good thing on Voltaire.
Yeah.
I know you wanted to bring up.
I do.
I'm also a big fan of him. So should we save that for the end?
Let's do that.
Okay, cool. Because I sort of had some small tidbits. Mine aren't really like history things per se, just theoretical ideas. I don't know. I think we're going to talk about hot women from history. So this is not a good note. This is already a pretty chauvinist podcast. So
is it?
I don't know. We were talking about man spreading, and now we're just going to rate the women of history.
Manspreading is kind of inveighing against mankind, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's criticizing them. So, if anything, this podcast is misandrist.
True. Yeah. If anything, we're actually railing against all the guys who fucked up the world.
We just hate men.
Exactly. No, but I was kind of thinking, like, who do you think is attractive from history? Have you ever seen someone in a painting who you thought was kind of nice?
I don't know about in a painting.
Or like you read something about them and you're like, oh my god, that's a nice. I would like to date that.
Well, I've daydreamt about Helen of Troy.
Yeah.
Sometime.
Oh man. I mean, a whole war started because of her.
Yeah, because she was amazing. Just so attractive.
Yeah. Who was the guy? Who were the people that? It was who was the guy who came to save her again?
There were a lot.
There was a bunch of dudes. There was a lot of dudes.
There were the whole army of the whole Ionian army, I think.
It's really funny because like the whole Iliad, if you think about it, is just like it's like a shitty house party where everyone's after like one girl and they all start fighting in the kitchen and stuff. Yeah. And then like one guy gets like suplexed and hurts his ankle.
I know.
Yeah.
There's so many descriptions in the Iliad of people just dying. So much of it is that.
I know.
And then his armor clanged upon him, and then the blood just emanated from his broken skull and. Yeah.
I was gonna say that Homer knows how to write an epic though, because he starts it off really well, because like he starts with like the gods all in their little like in Olympus just hanging, and then that foreshadows the shit, and you have Achilles' mother dipping in, and then all of it starts, and then all of it, and then the epilogue. Like this guy thought of like a part 1 and part 2.
He knows exactly what gossip you want to hear.
Yeah, but like I think he started like the blockbuster epic movie. Like that's it was kind of cool. Yeah, it's all gossip. It's like oh, they said that you actually love him, and then what? And then they stab somebody.
And then people being angry at each other. It's like a combination of those ABC talk shows.
Yeah.
Those hard talk type shows. And then just People magazine.
I gotta say, also the Trojan horse. I always wondered if he came up with the Trojan horse or if that was an actual thing that people did.
Yeah.
Or,
I doubt it.
I bet
it's probably some kind of metaphor we don't know about.
That's true. Putting a bunch of guys on a horse and
and jumping out later, because there's no way somebody didn't suspect that.
Right?
There's just no way.
Who gives you what's that phrase? Never look a gift horse in the mouth. If you look at a wooden horse, you should look inside it at all times.
Yes.
Yeah, because there could be people in there. Yeah. So also, here's my question: did no one ever just knock on the horse?
Yeah.
With hollow. You think it's a solid wooden horse?
Yeah.
Also, a horse with a trapdoor in it. Not very smart. I don't
No.
know. Honestly, those Trojans. deserved it. Also, people say that Troy is modern day Turkey, so that's, so you know.
And
yeah.
they must have rolled it in really, really gently, not to hear people just knocking around
shit,
inside.
Yeah, like knocking. I hurt my head. Yeah, like this.
You just you could do your laugh there. It's just all the Ionians in there just like.
Yeah. Well, it's like the greatest prank.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they don't even know we're in this horse. Yeah. Oh my god. That's hilarious. Also, after the battle, they're like, "You want to keep the horse? Or what do you want to do with this horse?" Like, I don't know.
My dad
Should
told
just
me about
dismantle the horse.
My dad told me about a frat group that got in trouble at the U of U because they did something that pissed off a sorority, so they sent them donuts, and then the donuts got eaten. So later they sent them Polaroids of them all wearing the donuts, and they all got in so much trouble.
Well, hold on, wearing the donuts,
Yeah.
like where.
On their erect peni.
Damn, that's amazing. That is a very like psychological.
That's
That's like the
up.
modern version of the Mongols, like cutting the heads off of presidents and catapulting them into cities, like terrorizing people.
Yeah, they'd also do that with like diseased animals.
Yeah, like just shooting cows into cities.
Yeah, they'd make sure an animal got sick and then they'd kill it and throw it, like trebuchet it over the wall.
Oh, you know what I was gonna say? Speaking of the Mongols, I know there's a lot of political strife going on. Everyone's worried about World War III. Just to put it into perspective, just feel lucky you're not living in 1200 AD.
Yeah.
Okay, like the Mongol, like back then, Baghdad was like the capital of West Asia. It was the capital of the world. It was huge because Europe was still in the Dark Ages, pretty much. Baghdad was like the center of all culture, science, everything. It had a population of like 6 million people back then. It was huge. Yeah. The Mongols came, they killed so many people. Baghdad didn't reach its population back until like the 20th century, which is insane. That's how many people they killed, like fucking murdered everything. Oh man, yeah.
Oh my god.
Dude, the Mongols did a number. It was crazy.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, but it was weird too because the Mongols like they didn't like, they would like kind of integrate but still keep killing everybody. So like they would move to like Persia and then kind of become Persian because they liked it, and then they would still keep killing everybody. It was insane, and like they would marry like a woman who was Christian, so they'd be like, and she would be like, "Hey, maybe don't kill the Christians this time," and they would like ignore the Christians. Yeah,
man.
It's fucking nuts. Those guys did a number. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Also, I saw what Genghis Khan looks like, and that guy, if he wasn't that powerful, nobody would be fucking him. I don't think he was not a
I'm
big...
sure a lot of that was just
Yeah.
nobody wanted to fuck him, but did have to or something.
Yeah,
it's not good. It's not good.
Anyway, but yeah, no, Mongols. Also, I've met some Turkish guys who are all named Cengiz, which is Genghis. But it's like how much do the Mongols have to like fuck you up that you get like Stockholm syndrome to then name your kids after the guy? Or I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah.
But also Turks like migrated. I think some Turks are descendants of those people from the steppes.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. Yeah, that's really funny. But yeah, no, there's something else. Yeah, just those steppe people, because like nobody knew how to contain them forever. Because there's all these like armies in like Western China with just like on horses.
Yeah, they're
just like trolling everybody, just running around.
Yeah, the cavalry was really what made him.
Yeah.
Good. They were the first people to figure out like just
get on a horse.
Yeah, get on a horse and you're better. They also they could shoot from horseback, which is really amazing.
Good. Yeah. Someone was saying like the average Mongolian soldier, like their legs were like all fucked up because they were on horses so much. So like they had like they all walked like sideways, like weird. It was really weird. Yeah, like I don't know. Well, it's funny though because the Mongols, they wreaked so much havoc, but now if you went on like the streets and like asked somebody like, hey, what do you think of Mongols? They'd be like, oh, they're a motorcycle club. They invented the yurt, and they're a relatively small country. So yeah. Yeah, nothing's going on in Mongolia. I don't think there's much.
Not really.
If you're a Mongolian, just let us know.
I mean, the civilizations just take it in turn to be important.
Right? Yeah, everyone has their turn. It'd be kind of cool if there just was a new horde, like a giant horde of people running around. I
mean, just the thing about Western civilization is they had their turn when the greatest with war weapons. They were the people who the only thing they did was be better at war and then just subjugate everyone else, and it just hasn't stopped.
That's so true, because it's true, because like if a Mongol horde came back of that magnitude, the U.S. would just like drone strike it. It just just
be dead.
Killed millions of Mongols.
Yeah,
it would be crazy.
That's just like short of nuclear weapons, there's
Yeah.
nobody who can stand against us
I'm
militarily.
sort of mad about that too. I'm actually mad we came up with like flight and guns.
Yeah.
Because it kind of ruins like warfare. Like I feel like if we still had swords now, it'd be a very different global landscape. It'd be like you'd actually have to be good at sword fighting and shit. Yeah.
I mean, after World War II, when Roosevelt died, Truman was the person who just decided that we would keep on a wartime footing even in times of peace.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what made it kind of crazy.
Yeah. But also because like all the Americans were like they were like super traumatized by fighting with Japan. They were all like, I don't want to fight with them anymore. Let's just kill let's just change the world forever as we know it. Yeah, and like they were scared of a mainland invasion of Japan because they were like, because Okinawa was so horrible and that was just one island.
Yeah.
And they're like, if this is gonna be every single island, like this is gonna kill so many people.
Yeah.
Because I think the U.S. thought that if they did invade Japan, they would be there until like 1955.
Yeah.
Which is nuts. Like if you defeat Germany in 1945 and you still have 10 more years of Japan, it'd be crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so nuts that we have military bases everywhere, but we're not called an empire.
Yeah, but to be fair, some of those bases are, because this is a huge myth, because with all the stuff in Iraq, like a lot of those U.S. bases in Iraq, they're not really U.S. bases. Like the U.S. put them there, but it's mostly just like Iraqi security forces there.
Oh yeah.
So it's usually like the local armies there.
I mean, we
like,
definitely have bases in Japan. Like
that's true.
Like a lot of my cousins in the military, he
Yeah.
went to Japan. My friend is in the military. He had to go to Japan.
Mhm.
Like a lot of the places are like Japan, Korea,
Germany.
like Germany.
Yeah.
England, there are a lot.
Yeah. Is it me or is like every kid who was like an army brat was like in Germany at some point? Like they're always like stationed in. What the fuck is going? Is that where all the families go? I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, there's so many.
Yeah.
we're all over the damn place.
Yeah. No.
Just, I mean, why? They have their own militaries. Why?
I've heard really bad things about the. Not to disparage the troops, but like just I've heard that like the troops in Korea specifically are like super fuckboys. Like they just like on Tinder they're just like going crazy, like just getting like just fucking around.
Yeah, my friend who went to Japan, he just had a sugar mama. There was this older lady whom he would have sex with, and she would just buy him whatever he wanted.
Jesus, I gotta say it's very weird to me. Also, like this is I don't mean to be like offensive or whatever. Like, I'm just curious. Like it's just interesting how like the U.S. just devastated Japan and then also helped rebuild everything, and then like and then they like do business. It's really weird how that happens. I don't understand.
And then it's been so westernized over there that it's depressing.
That's what I mean. Yeah. I feel like I hate that. I hate that when that happens to countries where like they have a really vibrant like culture. That's why everyone likes it. And then there's like a bunch of McDonald's now, and it's cheap.
I mean, the materialism there is way crazier than here some of the time.
Yeah, well, it's like fucking up their culture too. Like they like no one's having kids and all this shit, which I also don't know much about. But I just
it's so misogynistic. I think like they were asking men why people weren't having sex out there, and they said women are doing things now and we're afraid of them. And if you look at their women's depictions in anime, they're just like cute little people who just like and just...
also Japanese business Japanese business practice is really funny. Like in the 60s, like I was reading this thing about Nintendo, like back in the day, like before Nintendo was a video game company, and like apparently in Japan, like back in the day, if you went on business, that meant you were going to be seeing prostitutes the entire time. Like if a guy was like, I'm going to be in another city, be back next week, then you could expect him to just be hitting up like brothels and stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean it's just there was already kind of a history of sexual explicitness in the art. It's fine, but a lot of it I think probably did take the form of like subjugating women.
I would love to know more about like the like how it transitioned from like the medieval Japan into like modern Japan and like that sounds really
it's so
cool.
Interesting. I mean, it's such a beautiful culture. Like the music,
cool landscape, the mountains and all that shit,
and the architecture. Architecture,
but also
my
it's
God,
cool because they still pump out so much culture. Like I think the U.S. is here and like they kind of like are equally like shooting just like content into the world. It's weird. They're good at that.
But just I don't know. It's just like the emphasis put on tranquility in their architecture, and it's beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
And like
also there's such a cool culture too. It's like when the Fukushima nuclear reactor thing happened. Like older people were going to do the cleanup because they didn't want to like endanger younger people with like
Yeah.
cancer, which is like that's so like. I don't think anybody in America would do that.
No.
It's not we're not that thoughtful. We'd be like, get there, you fucking your kids.
It's
Yeah.
interesting how just different cultures evolve. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's beautiful.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I didn't know that Japan. Well, I was also going to say, like, I feel like an idiot because like, most of my education about Japan came from The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise, which is a bad movie. Yeah.
Yeah,
Terrible
I mean,
yeah.
like I've read a lot about the Jesuits. Like that's the only way.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I know much about it. It's just the Jesuits going over there, and you know, like we have clocks, we have stuff, and they're like teaching them navigation tricks and map making tricks and shit. And then getting
Like, you know what? It's gotta suck to be the guy who's like hanging on to the old ways, and then new ways are coming in, and then everyone kind of brushes you to the side to like bring in the new. You know what I mean? Like if you're like the last feudal Japanese guy, and then everyone else is like modernizing. You're like, come on, guys! I thought we were still like having like meditation gardens and stuff. What's going on? Like, what's this anime stuff?
Even the Lord you're serving, he's like, it's different now. It's not feudalism. You can do what you like.
I think that's my favorite trope in history is the "No Country for Old Men" trope, where it's like, yeah, you're just too old for this now. You should die now because this world is not for you anymore.
Get out of the way.
You're done. Yeah. You're just, it's not. Well, it's also why World War I is interesting because like. That's what that whole war was. Everyone was just too old for it, and they're like, "Oh, this shit's way too modern for us. Like, we don't even know what the fuck this is."
Yeah, and they were stubborn and set in their ways. So they kept like fucking Churchill with Gallipoli. Just send men over. They'll get there eventually. And then they just got machine gunned down by the.
Yeah, and they were training people to just like walk in file into like machine gun fire and shit. I always thought about that. Like that never made sense to me either. Like if someone tells you to go over the top, and clearly everyone's getting gunned down, you just can't be like, hey man, like this is not.
If they like realized that, it would have blown their minds. They like couldn't fathom that it had that much deadly power.
Because people back then like that's you're programmed to be like subservient. You're like I'm a working class man. I'm not supposed to ever come out of my station. This is my whole life. I'll just be No, it's funny too because like while the British and French were getting killed, like the Russians like had the revolution. They're like, why could I fucking fight this war? We're going back. We're not gonna do that anymore. Whatever. But then the Russians had their own white revolutions that sucked. Yeah. And they all got killed.
Something that's cool about English history is just the kind of the utility in every change of regime. Like their elections last 2 weeks. Yeah. And then their revolution was like pretty small. It just like lasted a little bit. They're like, well, we figured it out.
It's definitely like the country where you just have like a bloodless coup every like 8 months. Which I don't know what the fuck is going on in England right now, but because everything seems crazy with all the Labour
crazy.
Party and Brexit and whatever.
I mean, the problem with
the
problem with it being so easy to just change what's happening is being bad there. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to because they just held it like fucking stupid David Cameron just held a referendum. And it was like he's like, no, I'll bet. Yeah. I'll bet it's like God with Job. It's like I'll bet that Job will.
Dude, that shit never made sense to me. Like the whole Brexit thing, because like they did it, then a lot of the country didn't want it, so it's like we can't just take it back. But now it's too late. Yep. Because now the EU is like already doing all this shit.
Yeah. And then they voted in a pro-Brexit prime minister now.
Dude, the funniest thing to me is that Scotland like only wanted to stay in the UK because of the benefits from the EU. Yeah. But now like they're already in, so they're like we don't actually want to be here anymore. Let's get out of here. Yeah.
Sean Connery said he would never move back until Scotland was independent. Yeah. Because he's a.
That's also my favorite thing is how everyone in the UK just hates England.
Yeah.
It's just that's the funniest thing.
Can you blame them?
You know, it's hilarious.
Can you just? I mean.
Yeah. I gotta say they also have the more swag. Like I think Wales and the Welsh and the Scots are like cool as fuck. Like they're awesome. But like England in comparison, there's
bunch of betas,
just a bunch of tracksuit wearing, fry eating idiots. You know, just chippy eating guys. Just going down to the local Pakistani shop to like harass the poor immigrant workers there. You know? Yeah. I don't just kidding. Not really. But
I hate him so much.
Even I hate English.
I like those. I don't like Mel Gibson. But I like those movies where he kills a lot of English. Like Braveheart and The Patriot.
Dude, Scotland is sick though. Like Scotland, they have free, like pretty much free healthcare, basically free education. They have like public housing. It's like nice public. It's like really cool.
Well, that's
such a great country.
That's
it's
the
awesome.
benefit of Parliament, where there's actually not that much propriety.
Yeah.
Strangely for England, where you can just stand up and be like, "No, fuck you."
Yeah, exactly.
And like, it's so angry.
Dude,
in
I was trying to write a joke about this. That's what I love about other countries. I was watching this you ever see those videos of like the Parliament in like Ghana, where like they're just hitting each other with chairs and shit.
Yeah.
But that gets shit done.
It does. Well,
Yeah.
the problem, I mean, one of the big problems with America, and this also gets to the press, is we put so much, we laud bipartisanship so much and consensus.
Well, because correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't there the Thomas Jefferson or something quote where he bemoaned bipartisanship? And it was like, that's the dumbest shit you can ever do.
It's crazy because it leaves out nuance. Yeah. Which is exactly what's happened. There are two sides of the issue now, but they're both blind to so many things.
And you also have no choice, because it's like you really only have one choice to vote on. Mm-hmm. You don't really have anything. You can't do it. There's no like room for like.
What's wrong with with American politics is what's wrong with British television. Just like they just have the BBC, like 1, 2, 3, and then here we have.
Oh my god, no! If Americans put as much thought into politics as they did into programming for television, it would be amazing.
It would be so good.
Yeah.
Well, there's a refusal to appreciate nuance.
Yeah. No, it really is.
And then it's just. It's gross because people are like, well, can't we agree? No, you shouldn't. There is this revolutionary, I can't remember his name, but he used to say when asked about his country, I can't remember what the country was, but it was in turmoil. He's like, there are encouraging signs of polarization.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, because it's not a good sign. The country should not be split in half.
No.
I'd much rather run a country that's like a pizza, where it's like there's a bunch of eights, and then they have to form coalitions, but they still have their own. Because like Israel's that way, where they have a coalition government. There's like a bunch of parties, and they'll make coalitions to like get a vote in, but they still have like different objectives. So it's not. Also, a very interesting government is Lebanon, because they. But this only works for Lebanon, but like. They have a rule where it's like this position has to be this sect or this group, so it's like the prime minister has to be this, or like this guy has to be Christian, this guy has to be Shiite or something, and it kind of balances everything. So it's like they have a cool checks and balances. I don't. Something's gonna happen. We gotta shake up the government. It's gonna be.
No, it won't happen.
I don't think our checks and balances ever accounted for mega corporations or like crazy shit. Like it wasn't gonna be. Yeah.
That's why there ought to have been another constitutional convention. Yeah. In the past 200 years.
So this is. I'm not sure if it's like annoying or like tired, but I know it's interesting to think.
That's one of the problems of patriotism, is that there's so much fealty to how America was started.
Right.
That they don't listen to the founding fathers, who was like, yeah, this works right now, but it's going to change, and you'll have to change it.
Right. That's what's interesting, because as an immigrant, like I came here, and then that's what I kind of learned about. So that's like kind of what I imagined would happen. So I'm like, this is your guys' country.
Yeah, especially with a country with as much like anger in it as America. You'd think it would have been overturned again and again and again. But
amazing.
It just.
Yeah, it's weird. I definitely could see, no, but like back to the first thing, like if we just let the Congress just have a huge fist fight, it'd be so funny. Like just Nancy Pelosi like with someone in a headlock, and like Biden just getting hit by a chair, and then like just Bernie. I think Bernie would do well for himself.
Yeah, he'd fight dirty.
Yeah, he would fight dirty.
He would know what needs to get done. He'd poke eyes.
Yeah, Bernie's from Brooklyn. He's hit Bernie has hit a guy with a bottle before. He can do it. Yeah, and then like Mike Pence just having like PTSD or something.
He's got a belt with that spike you turn out. He just fucking.
He's like has like the outsiders weapons like It's this my god I hate to say it, but I think Trump would also fight dirty and like badly. Like I think he would probably like really maim one person, and then he would like to pull him off, and it'd be bad.
I think he'd be kind of a coward.
Or that's true. Or a coward. Yeah, he'd be like he'd be sicking his underlings, and he'd be like in the corner like get me out of here.
Sicking.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh man, no, but I really do get envy, because it also seems people in other countries give more of a shit about the politics. Yeah. We just care until we only care until the last minute. And we're like, shit, we gotta vote.
I think it starts with the press. Is that just people are so one-sided in America, and they're like, this is the way you should be, and if you're not, then fuck you. Yeah. And then everyone as a whole has like decided that it should be one way.
Right.
And
we can't. There's too many of us that have one way.
We're lucky that like the majority of people who who like have public voices are liberal, but it's all kind of blending together and becoming one liberalism, and that's just it ought to be broken up.
Yeah. But like nobody wants to be in their own little niche party. It's like scary to them. So, it's weird. But you know what? I think like in Colin Quinn's special where he talks about like the U.S. just becomes city states. I think that's not a bad idea. We should just like federalize.
Okay. I mean, they're like celebrities are overwhelmingly liberal.
Oh yeah.
Like
but they're like bad liberal. They're like fake.
Yeah, like fake liberal.
They're not even like.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right,
they're just doing it to conform.
Right.
And they don't care. That's a difference between a liberal and a leftist. You know.
Yeah, it's really funny because like there's liberals who like actually want to get like actual political action, and then there's some who just like I said the right word. I am a good person. Like,
I said the right word.
Yeah. Do I get a deal now?
Yeah.
Like is that
Yeah.
But you know what? This is exactly the time in an empire when it all goes down.
Yes.
You know what? Like this happened in every empire. they were bickering about bipartisanship, and then the Gauls invaded.
Yeah, and there hasn't been any country that's had such an overwhelmingly powerful military complex as ours. So it'll probably just stay the same.
Yeah.
And it'll just get worse and worse internally.
Unless the military politicizes and then like just becomes its own apparatus and like just starts calling shots.
And we become the banana republic we're meant to be.
It's really funny because like tons of countries, like Egypt was like that, where like the military has so much power in Egypt, where like they like build roads, they build houses, like they do a lot of other shit. So like, they're like a business. So like the military would just call shots of like, all right, you're president now. Like you're gonna It's like you're doing this now. Because they're the military. You can't.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
That's the thing is that, like, when you have a monopoly of violence, then whoever has the military, it's like if you all want to cut a pizza, but one of you has the gun in the room, you're like.
Yeah, I mean that's part of what happened in the English Revolution is that the army got a lot of power eventually, and then like Parliament had a lot of power too, but just by like passing new laws that said the king doesn't have any power now. It's interesting that people just follow that. Like
it's weird.
You wonder about it because those guys actually don't know what they're doing, and it's just they're only in power because people think they are.
I think it's for like convenience though. You know, it's the whole thing. Like once again, like in Rome, if you, like a Roman who goes to orgies and eats grapes doesn't want to be thinking about that state and all that kind of shit. Yeah, it's like you either have a convenient life or you have a hard political life.
Yeah. It's just shifting credibilities. That's all politics is.
Well, you know what I think we should do? Because we don't have any monopoly on violence, we should just start a militia.
Yeah.
We can start calling shots. We should start a militia, take over Utah or like the mountains.
Yeah.
We talk about this a lot when we're drunk. But like if you had a militia, went into the mountains, just did little harassing stuff. Like they could never find you. It'd be really cool. We could just take over the state.
Well, it's interesting. Awesome. Like that, I've been looking at the Book of Mormon, and then the Doctrine and Covenants. It gets really weird. Yeah. Like I don't think I believe in a God, but I was just reading it and it got crazy. Yeah. It's like in the end times, the oceans will heave themselves beyond their bounds and swallow up the great cities. And I was like, that sounds like global warming to me. And then it said the earth will end in fire, and then only the righteous will be saved.
There we go.
Yeah. Yeah. That's gonna happen everywhere. Only the righteous will be saved from the fires, and then it says,
oh man, that's funny.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Honestly, it would be so funny though to like make a city-state inside the U.S. Like you're just surrounded by the U.S. and like, but for some reason it's like too much trouble to get rid of you, so they just let you have your little country. That'd be funny. Just like Arash's land. It's like a 2-mile country.
Arash's land.
It's like Luxembourg. That'd be funny if it was just in there. It's like, all right, but it would be really funny because every map of America would be like solid color, but there'd be like one little hole where I live. It would be cool. That's all I fantasize.
I love that. Arash's land. Yeah. It's just like a kid being like he just says things are his like.
Like Max's corner.
Max's ice cream.
Yeah, Max's toy box. Yeah, no, it's probably how dictators do it. They're like Saddam's chest. Yeah. No.
Absolutely. Yeah. Dictators, those people are just people who never lost.
They're like
that
children.
Sense. Yeah,
it's
they're
like a
just
kid
children.
in a sandbox.
Mine now.
Yeah. Oh man. I could see, like, I don't think the U.S. will ever have that kind of, like, it's not going to have, like, a sacking of the U.S. It'll probably just get shittier, and the economy will go bad.
There was, like, Gore Vidal said that, I just know so much about what he thought. Yeah. Anyway, I hate having to bring him up every time. But he said that America will have a dictator, and when it does, it'll be a really folksy man. Who oh, hello, partners.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That That makes sense. Like, I mean, a folksy man's like a populist.
Yeah,
That's,
just a completely lovable, folksy guy, and then he'll get power, and then there'll be this benevolent police state or something.
That's also what a benevolent police state.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know what,
seemingly benevolent. I should say. Yeah.
I was about to say, like, what police state will I settle for?
It'll be
I'm
like,
just like, I'll go for a police.
It'll be like Disneyland, where it's like, you're not policemen, you're cast members. You gotta be nice to the people, and then they're like smiling right before they just beat the shit out of you.
Oh, exactly. It's like Mickey Mouse is just like, he's like about to beat the shit out of some guy. He's like, oh, that's right, I'm part of the ride. I gotta hold back. Yeah, I mean, like maybe we become some kind of like surveillance state, like East Germany, and then you just have to be like really careful what you say or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's gonna be weird.
Well, we already are a surveillance state.
Exactly.
Fuck it. Yeah.
The funniest thing was like how like Spotify was sending everybody like a free Google Nest. It's like you're literally just inviting the surveillance state into your home. That's what it's for. You're just like, and everyone's like, oh my god, I get a free Google Nest. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, you were just a dumbass consumer. You deserve to be turned into Soylent, you idiot.
And it's kind of over the top to like put a sticker on your camera on your laptop and shit.
A little bit, yeah. But they can still be hacked. That's the thing. That like there's people have been hacking the Nest cameras. Also, I mean, this all counts as history because I think surveillance is like an interesting topic in history.
I mean, definitely people can hack it. It's so easy for people to do that. Just look through your camera at you, what you're doing. But nothing I'm doing is important. I don't care if they're watching me.
It was really funny though because there was this is like a random story, but like there was this I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago. There was this I think it was like a political science student in like Australia found this out. So there's like a app for like it's like Fitbit or one of those companies where like you wear like a thing and you exercise. So he found the map of data, and then he realized that because everyone was wearing one, it actually gave away tons of military intelligence. Because like there's like random desert bases in like Africa, and there's a guy jogging because of some guy's jogging routine. You can see the outline of like an airfield.
Jesus Christ!
And it gave away everybody's location, and they're like, "Holy shit! This 18-year-old is like exposed shitloads of U.S. soldiers and people."
That's so funny.
But yeah, it's really funny. But like, so it's great though because you're just unknowingly contributing to like these data sets and stuff.
It's so hard to know the effects of things now. The butterfly effect is like digital now. It's universal. It just goes. The smallest thing can just set off a chain reaction that destroys everything.
Yeah, it must have been nice to live in a world when that wasn't the case. Like, back in the day, you were a peasant, you just tended to your little field. Yeah. Nobody ever was affected by your actions. It was very nice.
I mean, that's we can start talking about the American Revolution again. What Rousseau was talking about the noble savage. And then, I mean, it was kind of... I mean, when we didn't know anything, we were killing each other a lot more.
That's true. Yeah, people always have a very idealistic view of like what happened, but back then.
Yeah.
But
and I mean, without those social constructs, there are some really beautiful things, like how everything was shared in common in like some tribal societies.
What's it called? Communalism. That's like the primitive communism. When like Well, it's really funny because like in reading like Marx and stuff, he kind of talks about history as like a series of economic systems that kind of fold into each other. So like in the beginning everyone worked, but then someone didn't want to do the work, so they were like, oh, okay, well I'm just gonna watch the stars. So you guys do the plowing, and then there's a new political class, and then there's like slavery, the slavery system where like there's like one guy is free, and then everybody else is a slave, and that's like Egypt, and then but then over time you get more and more classes, like you get like the clerical class, because it's really funny because people throughout history find excuses to not work. That's the whole point. Yeah. People just don't want to be peasants, so they'll find a reason to like be a merchant or be a cleric or be an emperor, and then they don't have to do shit. It's great. Yeah. So like we're podcasting. That's our class. That's
when Ted Kaczynski starts being kind of attractive, because he just went out. I mean, technically we don't have to work. We could just go out into the wilderness and just build a cabin and poop there and just grow things and kill animals and then just read.
Right, because it's the social contract, right? Yeah. Like to be in a society, you're signing a contract that like I am now part of the society. I will abide by these laws. You can persecute me if I break the laws, but in exchange, I get to live in this cool country with video games and movies.
Yeah.
But if you don't want, you should have. He's right. Kaczynski's right. You should have the option to just go in the wilderness.
Yeah.
You should just be like, you know what? I don't want to be an American or any country. I'm just gonna fuck off.
Yeah. I mean, any system is gonna oppress.
Yeah.
That's what's gonna happen.
Dude, they should have like the Brave New World thing where like they have all those people living in the wild. Like they should have that. Just let us go.
If you want to,
yeah,
sure.
If you want
go.
to, it should be an option. Just
yeah.
go.
I mean, like if you go build, you probably won't be found for a while if you just go build a cabin out in the middle of nowhere. But if you are, they'll just be like, "What the hell? Get out!"
Oh yeah, well this turned into a good philosophy cast.
Yeah.
I think it still counts because that's the big part of history is like people
just human ideas.
Exactly. Yeah, we were just talking about that's like the most interesting part. You don't want to hear about some guys, I don't know.
Yeah.
Painting.
Yeah.
That's not fun to talk about.
You don't want to hear about like someone sailed a ship here and then it was hard and
exactly. Like, the Santa Maria, whatever, the Columbus. Who cares?
Yeah. Voltaire talked about history and he said something like, with history you can prove anything. History doesn't. Yeah. Like it doesn't matter in itself. It's just in the ideas that are kind of lost in it that you exhume.
No, seriously, yeah, because history gives you like concrete data. Like this happened, so this is like the evidence we have. Because Marx says the same thing. We're like, because Marx says that like the worst thing to do is to speculate. You should always look back and like build off of stuff. So like he never guessed or speculated. Which is like really interesting. So
yeah, like, and that's the trouble with the term progressivism, I think, is that it just discounts tradition so much, which is why nobody has a sense of history nowadays.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, like, nobody wants to know what happened.
Yeah, and conservatives, a lot of the time, they're like they say they're for tradition, but their tradition only goes back about like to the beginning of America. It's like, well, the founding fathers, and they don't know anything about that. It's hearsay.
Well, it's really funny because it's actually how fascism started that way. Because like when Mussolini came up with it, because Mussolini was like a leftist, but then like he was like kind of kicked out of communist circles in Italy, and like everyone just hated him in the left. And then but like his whole idea for fascism, because like like for the layman or the gayman as we're gonna call you guys, but like pretty much like I'm sure everyone knows this, but like it's called fascism because a fasci is So in Mussolini's Italy, if you look at the logo, there's a bundle of sticks with like a rope around it and like a hatchet coming out, and so those are called the fasces. They're sticks that are like the whole idea was that like if you break a stick this long, you can break, but a bunch of sticks bundled together, it's like you can't break it, so it's like united and strong. But like Mussolini had this whole thing about how like, oh my God, our Roman history was so plentiful and rich, and we used to be this amazing civilization, and like Ethiopia was ours, so we should just go take Ethiopia now, and like all this crazy shit.
Yeah, and I was.
But he definitely just painted this like kind of false history of Italy. Yeah. Because Italy wasn't even a country until like 18 whatever. Like it hadn't unified for it was all city states for like most of history. Yeah. But he had this whole Roman myth kind of thing, and everyone just believed it. And was like, oh yeah, we used to be these amazing kings. Like. Yeah,
the trouble with perceived tradition, like
a lot perceived.
A lot of conservatism is just, it's not tradition, it's just habit. It's just what you were doing before, and then you just keep doing that. It's just not wanting to change anything.
Yeah, exactly. Or thinking that because of that, like. I also hate that when, because of the achievements of your ancestors, people think that they get something. It's like, what have you done? You didn't do shit. It's like, you didn't build the pyramids,
so
idiot.
Crazy.
Not saying that Egyptians think that, but like, you know what I mean? Like, you didn't found the country. What license do you have to make these kind of, you know what I mean? Like, it's annoying.
I don't like the attitude where
it's annoying.
It's like, let's just do what we were doing a little bit before. It was working fine. When black people didn't vote and good, okay.
Oh, that was great. Yeah,
that was awesome. Yeah. Let's do that again. Perfect.
I know. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, it's interesting because they think that like I can't put it into words. You had a better take. You say your take.
Oh no.
Yeah.
But just I keep wondering about how if Lincoln hadn't like just strangled the system into getting the Emancipation Proclamation passed, if he hadn't just tooth and nail fought bloody knuckled to get it done, seriously, how long it would have been before it happened.
True. No, I know we're a democracy,
Mm-hmm.
but certain times I think someone just has to come in, clean some house, and then leave, and then just go in there. Very like like The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
I don't know, but even though that movie was like a low key endorsement of Bush,
Yeah.
but
I mean,
yeah,
like the emancipation would have had to take the normal political route
Exactly.
because it didn't have Lincoln's political genius.
Well, did England emancipate slaves earlier or after?
They did earlier, yeah.
Earlier, yeah,
Earlier.
because it's really interesting. Honestly, I think if there wasn't a civil war, I think the U.S. would have waited till like the very last second,
Yeah.
like until everybody was like, "Guys, you got to do this, or else we're not going to trade with you or something." Or like, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's just we've had to every single time. I mean, there would have been. I mean, I was talking to somebody who is pretty sympathetic with the South for like the Confederate States.
that's a bit cheeky.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was,
Alright.
and they were like, well, that's not how it happened, and then it's like, well, yeah, they were just denying history. I was like, history. I was like, well, who writes history? I was like, the people who remember what happened.
Oh, okay. Also, that's the problem is that people always misuse history. Like they misuse the past. Like every group has that one annoying guy who's like, well, actually, like, there's always like the guy, like the Southern revisionist guy, or like the racist European supremacist guy who's like, if it wasn't for us, then we wouldn't have like civilized the Africans and the natives.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, buddy, that's literally like bad. It's not good. You should not say that.
People, he was telling me that the Confederate States just should have been let go constitutionally. I was like, maybe, but like Lincoln knew that was just a bad thing to have happen.
It also would have been like a humanitarian nightmare. If
Yeah,
you didn't
well,
let the estate, it'd be horrible.
That's what I was telling him. It was like just as soon as they decided on some crimes against humanity laws, like international crimes against humanity laws, it'd just be invaded. It's like, what the fuck are you doing to these people?
I gotta say, it's actually worse for the North to let the South exist, and then if they knew what was going on, like it's pretty much like if Nazi Germany existed, you'd be like, well, we'll just let it happen. Which is like what the Soviet Union, what Stalin kind of did, which is why like I don't really like Stalin that much. But like,
Well, I mean.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Lincoln a little more because
Sure.
he was such an interesting case in history because he just had a moral principle that he held to, and everything else was second to it. He's like, this is undeniably evil.
Yeah,
this is just an evil thing.
It's funny because people nitpick him a lot, but it's like I honestly I do think the product of your time thing is true to some degree. Like because I remember, he had that one comment he made where like he didn't think that like white people and black people should like live in proximity, which. I think what he meant was that like because it's gonna be violent and they're not like society hasn't got to the point where they're ready for that. I don't think he meant that anyone was inferior. You know what I mean? Well, especially because he took in Frederick Douglass and like he let him like tell him what was the famous Frederick Douglass speech where he was like, you need to make action here and like.
I don't know. I haven't looked into that much.
Yeah, Frederick Douglass was also the fucking man. That guy was cool.
Yeah, he was. I went.
Awesome.
I had the privilege of seeing his glasses at a museum.
Yeah.
I saw his pens and his glasses, and I teared up. In Chicago.
He was ridiculously radical for that time, and he was like in Lincoln's like close circle. So that's like that makes you think Lincoln knew what he was doing.
And he was he was just brilliant. He was a brilliant man. I mean, I think that's why I think literature is just the cure for racism, because you look at literature from any culture and it's brilliant. There are geniuses in any culture. How can you think that certain people are less intelligent natively if you just fucking read some African literature? Just read it. And it's so nuts. Like Sherman Alexie, Native American literature is so beautiful.
Oh yeah.
There's just so much attention to beauty.
Exactly.
It's so upsetting because it's just when people don't educate themselves when they think that. If they had any like comprehensive education, they'd get over racism immediately.
Yeah. It's funny because then I actually get more annoyed when someone actually like knows history but they're still racist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like do you ever meet those like armchair like Euro bros who are like super into like the Holy Roman Empire? Like there's a weird thing going on right now where like, there's people who like pretend to be Catholic.
Yeah.
Because people like this whole idea that they're like a pious. A good European person. And there's also like the Muslim equivalent where I've met like these weird people who like back when we in our cultural height of our culture it was in the Muslims were the most civilized people on earth, and it's like this is all fascist talk. Like we should all appreciate everyone's culture and history. It's like good.
I
Anyway,
think,
this got very preachy. Sorry, guys.
yeah,
But,
it did, but it's good.
It's good to just say.
It's
I
good.
think. Well, also it's good that we have our own
Yeah.
opinions.
What's
we're not
what's wrong
just-
with being preachy if you can back it up?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
just-
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
But yeah.
Somebody disagrees, they can start their own podcasts.
I know. It's just I'm so unfunny when I'm preachy. I get like I just have but
Yeah.
no, it's interesting. But
I mean, just recognizing, I think even more than history or an appreciation of science and the facts, just knowing the art of different
Yeah.
cultures. That I think it's studying art and creativity of different cultures that takes the racism away.
seriously, dude, honestly, every racist should just play Civilization and then
Yes!
just play the Zulus, and then you will love it because they're like the best. They're the best civilization that game.
Yeah.
They clean up. Oh my
They
god,
do.
that fucking productivity boost. God, you can destroy it in the late game.
Yeah.
Good shit. Yeah. Anyway.
Oh man.
But yeah, sorry.
There's a
Yeah.
book called Ruins of Empires by I think it's C.F. Volney, Volney, but
Oh,
part of
okay.
it's translated by Thomas Jefferson actually.
Oh, it's like pretty old.
Yeah, and then it's actually it was written by a white dude, but the only real edition you can get is from like a Black History press
Oh.
because a lot of it is about like civilization started in Africa and just it's pretty anti-racist, especially for the time.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like that's the interesting about the founding fathers. Like, I'm so conflicted.
Yeah.
Because like certain things they do, like, why'd you do that, buddy? It's like I don't understand.
Yeah, like Thomas Jefferson actually was a person who thought that the slaves should be freed, but he did think that they should all be in Jamaica. It's like, we'll just free them and put them all in
I
Jamaica.
just don't. It's just so hard to like teleport my brain into their brain. Like like back then, you have to think you were 3 centuries ago. Everything's different. You're raised like I don't know. It's very hard to like I don't know. It's weird. But anyway, we should probably talk about our man Voltaire.
We're on such a tear though.
That was good.
We're on
That's
such
true.
a tear.
Yeah.
I feel like we can keep going.
Yeah. No, I'm
But I
down.
still have things to say.
Oh no, yeah, no,
Just
yeah,
like
go for it. Go for
the
it.
contradictions of human beings. Like Thomas Jefferson was such a contradiction. Benjamin Franklin was, but he was kind of less of one. I mean, he had slaves, but he was just extremely nice to them.
Yeah.
Whereas Thomas Jefferson, was not. I mean, he had children who, he had children with a slave, and they were slaves, and then he had to be begged by his wife, like before he died to free them upon his death. Like he almost just
thought
wasn't
they
gonna.
had to just have that station. Like he didn't. Like you have
Yeah.
to be. That's so weird.
And then another
Yeah.
thing that makes it stranger is that like Sally Hemings, the person he was with, was basically white. His children were gingers, and they were slaves just because they were It's so strange.
I don't know.
know.
That's always the most confusing thing when people in history just cannot shake their social constructs.
Yeah.
Which I don't think we can either. Like people in the future will look at us and be like, man, these guys just couldn't like stop doing this. So like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. For
Yeah.
him, it seemed like he thought that
Yeah.
he thought that his seed was contaminated by a people. It's
God.
nuts.
That's weird.
Yeah, it was like sure they look white, but it's so crazy.
Oh man.
It's so crazy. That's not funny. That's just so depressing.
No, Thomas Jefferson being a weird racist creep is hilarious.
Yeah.
Actually, but
I mean-
why did he have so much sex? He was just like racist, and he's like,
Well,
I just
it's interesting because his wife died, and he loved her a lot. He loved her so much. Well, we should start at the beginning, where he had, when he was a young man, he would try to fuck all his friends' wives, and they'd be like, "Ew, no." So his way of becoming attractive was to study. So he just studied law and the classics and things, and then he
God.
started getting women, and so he just kept doing that.
I feel like if Thomas Jefferson was alive now, he'd be this like really cringy white guy who's like trying to get like in on black culture, but like does it all wrong. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
he's like hitting on black women at bars. And he's like, "Hello, my queen.
Hello, my queen."
Can I get in there?" Yeah. And they're like, "What the fuck is wrong with you, man?
Yeah.
Jesus,
I mean,
it's like, I'm a person."
So his wife was dying, and then she said, "Don't marry Thomas." He's like, "Okay, I promise," and he didn't. But his
Oh my god, he was like, "Don't marry." He was like, "Can I still have sex with slaves? Is that on the
Can
table?"
I still-
Is that...
She's like, dies.
Yeah.
It was like
that
she
kills
was.
her. She's like, "Fucking god." Yeah.
Oh my hell!
Oh no.
But his second child died, and he's like, "Fuck this." He was in France. He's like, "My children need to be with me," And then the usual nanny was super old and got sick, and so they sent the children with Sally Hemings, who was another one of his slaves. And the last time he saw her, she was too young. I mean, he was way older than she was. And then also she was his wife's half sister.
Well, that's all normal. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably why the gene pool is so great.
Yeah.
All those people. That's why everyone in New England looks so weird, because this has been in. Yeah, he started it.
It's so fucked up. Like his wife's dad did the same thing and slept with a slave and made her, and then so he was his dead wife's half sister, and then he slept with her a lot, and then Sally Hemings was like had actually an influence on him, which is why a lot of people argue that she should be one of the founding mothers, and I think like a Holiday Inn is built on her grave right now.
Jesus Christ, that is a disrespect. That is not okay.
So
I gotta say, like, it's one thing to be a slave. It's even worse when everyone always creeps to try to like get with you.
Yeah,
that's horrible. Just leave them alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she's just been used by history. She was just buried in an unmarked grave. Like she was just dumped on a bunch of other people, and then she had an inn built on top of her.
That's awful.
Yeah.
Jesus. Well, that's a good note.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
To end on. Okay.
Yeah. There's definitely been people that America was just not kind to. Like there's a lot of them. Oh man. Like what is Zora Neale Thurston, like the super famous author, like huge Harlem Renaissance author. Like no one knew about her. Like she was not famous. She died in poverty when she died. Like when she passed away. Yeah. And like I think her whole grave is all like her estate's like really poor.
Yeah.
But then she became like her people found her work afterwards. That's the saddest when like no one knew about you.
Yeah, man.
That's probably how we're gonna go.
Yeah. Well, you just hope people pick up your stuff after you die a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, Orwell, Mozart, Van Gogh, Their Eyes Were Watching God.
That's a great book.
Is a book of such verbal brilliance.
Yeah. Well, the dialogue is like next level. It's like the 20s. It's so good.
Every part of it is so powerful.
Yeah,
it's so perfect. And then she just, she was black and a woman, and nobody wanted to pay it any attention. Nobody's gonna read this because it was from this demographic. So
no,
we're not publishing it.
The Harlem Renaissance is like such a cool era. That's like
it is.
I'm trying to like learn more about that. So
Langston Hughes alone will just.
Dude, his poetry he was like really leftist too. He was super. His poems are awesome.
An amazing guy.
Yeah, him like W.E.B. Du Bois.
Mm-hmm.
He was the boy.
Boy.
But he was awesome.
Yeah,
man.
There was like a modern lady. I can't place her name, but she's one of the most brilliant. I have to remember it because she's one of the most brilliant writers. And then she just got published in the New Yorker sometimes, but didn't have that much of a career because, black and a lady. So she made a living writing gardening books.
Oh.
So she wrote these brilliant short stories, just heart-rending short stories.
Did she die recently? Was it?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
You might be thinking of Maya Angelou.
No, it's like Toni Morrison.
Toni Morrison. Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, no, she's a different lady, but fuck.
Okay, we'll find it. Also, I was gonna say we'll retroactively go and post all the books and stuff we reference.
Yeah.
So we can like have it on Twitter or something.
Yeah, man.
We can have like a reading list. Yeah. But anyway, should we get into this Voltaire shit?
Yeah, let's get into Voltaire. 55 minutes in.
Oh, is it really?
You gave us one prompt.
Oh man! All right.
And we just talked forever.
All right, hell yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about Voltaire because.
I fucking love Voltaire. He's cool.
One of the most brilliant wits of all time, maybe the most brilliant.
Yeah, he's cheeky too. He's a cheeky guy.
But he was always really kind to people, especially in his later years. But once they challenged him, he just turned the Voltaire-ness on them. And he'd go on a Voltaire.
A Voltaire? Oh, he's on a real tear now. That's what they call him. Was that his real name? I thought that was his pen name.
No, his real name was Francois Marie Arouet.
That's a cool name.
Yeah, and then when he was a young man, he just adopted the name of Voltaire. I don't think it means anything.
What year was this? Like it was like 1700s, right? He was.
Yeah, it was a bit like a little. I mean, a good amount of time before the revolution, but
Okay.
But the revolution was soon enough after that it can be said that he was an influence.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Will Durant said he mixed the powder that Rousseau and he named some people used to spark the revolution.
Okay. So he wasn't being chopped.
No.
At the revolution. Okay.
No, he was.
That's always my main hope. It's like if you are an intellectual, you want to survive the revolution. You don't want to be killed in the revolution.
Yeah.
You want to be, you know what I mean?
No kidding. Yeah. You just hope you're on the right side of
Exactly.
whoever becomes
Candide's
dictator.
a sick book though.
It is. So the background behind it is part of it was he was mad because Leibniz came up with that philosophy of the best of all worlds. It's just our world is the best of all worlds. It has to be, or something like that.
What is it like Europe or like?
No, like the world.
Oh,
He
so
was
as
good as it's going to get.
Really?
Yeah, and then it was really annoying. And then
that's a terrible theory.
Yeah.
Leibniz, idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Rousseau. So what happened was the earthquake in Lisbon, which is like the 9/11 of that time.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Like,
it's like Mother Nature did it.
Yeah.
It's even worse.
And then
how do you fight that?
I mean, people talked about that. They said a lot of people said he was annoyed by people saying this was God's punishment against them.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because a lot of them, it was on a Sunday, and a lot of them were at church, and that's why so many people died.
Oh.
They were just packed together.
Also, the shitty built churches.
Yeah.
I bet it was like those Protestant churches where it's just like a cube and just falls in.
Yeah.
Or a baroque cathedral. Like a cherub statue kills you. Like it falls on you and kills you. Yeah.
It's like poetic at the end.
Yeah.
Like a Spielberg movie. It's just like the statue. And then everyone's cheering.
Yeah.
It's like the end of Hook. That clock with the crocodile on it just falls on him. And
It's like that's hilarious.
Fucking Spielberg.
Spielberg should do a Candide movie.
Yeah, he should.
Candide would be a weird movie though.
Yeah, it would.
I mean, to be fair, I read it in high school, like 9th grade, so it's been a while. But I remember some interesting things.
Yeah.
I just know. So you know, like the girl is named Cunegonde, whatever. That means big ass in Persian. I swear to God. Yeah, it means big bottom, and she has a big bottom because they like in one of the drawings are like carving her ass like a roast. In like the drawings,
Yeah.
And like her name just means big ass, and it's and I remember reading in high school, and I told the teacher, and she thought I was like making it up, so she was like, "Arash, shut up, that's not in the book." I was like, "Yes, it is. It says right here." Yeah.
Oh my God.
But it's so funny. What that means that like he must have known Persian or had somehow known that.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious.
He was the most.
Yeah.
He just knew so many things.
Yeah. He's a smart
He knew so
guy.
many things. But yeah.
Because the character's name was Big Ass. It's also because Candide means like a virtue. Like what is it? It's like he's like an earnest.
It's like optimistic.
Optimistic.
I think is what it means.
Yeah.
And so the earthquake happened, and he was mad about a lot of things. Those were some. Rousseau wrote an essay that was like it is the fault of man that this happened, because if man had lived out in the pastures instead of in cities, they would not have died in such numbers. If man had been under the stars instead of in houses, their houses would not fall upon them. And then because of all this...
This is back to Noble Savage.
Yeah.
This is exactly this idiot. So he really thinks because you're in a pasture, there's no buildings that fall on you.
Yeah. You
What
think
an idiot.
if we like part of his deal is that if we lived like primitive peoples, it would be so peaceful that we would not fight. We would. Oh
my God.
And then Voltaire just thought that was so dumb, so he just wrote everything against him.
That's hilarious. Well, because Candide is like the perfect character, because he's like, because from what I remember, he was like this really he's very optimistic, but he also witnesses like horrors beyond like imagination. But he just keeps going on.
Yeah,
he's like, oh, this is great. I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah, and a lot of the joke of the book is that, and then they were attacked by pirates, and why they were being thrown in their cells, they were philosophizing about them.
Yeah. Well, because he goes like around the world. He goes like he finds like Mayan gold at some point, right? And like, what does happen? He goes like El Dorado and then comes back.
Yeah,
it's like insane. It's such a good book.
Yeah, it's so good, and he wrote it in 3 days.
It's like Taxi Driver.
He just wrote it like he was so angry by Rousseau's essay that it just all came out of him in 3 days.
Dude, that's pretty. I mean, what if someone had a tweet so bad that you just wrote like a fucking book?
Yeah.
About it.
So he was. There's a story. He was coaching an actress to be in one of his plays, and then he was like, "No, more. You must be more passionate." And she said, "To be this passionate, I would need the devil in me." He's like, "That's it. You must have the devil in you to do this." And then his like coincidentally before after that, somebody said of him, into his hands were given all the powers of hell.
That's why the French are sexy. Like, also, whenever I imagine the French, I just imagine the French from Blackadder when they go to Paris. Have you seen that episode where like they go to like to find the Scarlet Pimpernel, and he's like locked in jail? It's really funny.
Yeah.
But all the French are like super annoying, they're like really sexy. It's really funny. Like he's all jealous of them. It's funny. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
No, it's all right. He was just this. He was the most energetic person, and his writings are 99 big volumes.
Damn.
He wrote more, I think, than anyone in history.
So he wasn't like a story writer. He was more of like a philosopher.
Yeah, more of a philosopher. I mean, every time he wrote stories, they were just stand-ins for ideas. All the characters.
Okay. Wait, so like ideology-wise, he's pretty close to like founding fathers, John Locke, that kind of Rousseau.
Yeah,
that camp. He's in that area. Okay.
I mean, he was one of the people who inspired the revolution because he was all about liberty and this is being done wrong and all this.
Hell yeah! Well, it's cool because he's also like a realist. He's like, no, the world sucks. Like this is bad. You should not be living like
just so bad. Yeah, like part of it was Cunegonde. She says, "Well, this happened and my whole family was killed and I was killed." And then the philosopher in the book, I think he shares with me a healthy distaste for the philosopher.
Yeah.
I mean, philosophy is admirable, but somebody who's a philosopher is just...
Well, because they're useless.
They're useless.
They only do is pontificate, but they don't actually do anything.
Yeah.
That's probably Leibniz, so right?
They're so annoying. And then there's like I don't know, there's a poetry to it sometimes that very few philosophers come upon. But yeah, so much of it is just shit. I mean, Bertrand Russell was brilliant, and he wrote that book, which is a real idealist book called In Praise of Idleness, where he says that if everybody had we only really need this kind of work week, and then everybody would have this many leisure hours, and just, that is a cute idea. It just will never happen.
Exactly.
They don't account with human nature. Like, mathematically, that'll be the way.
Yeah, no, it's really funny because like Marx had the same thing. I don't know, I keep bringing him up, but he has the same thing. Like his beef with anarchists was that like, yeah, it's a great idea. You want this like amazing pastoral world where everyone's like just eating roast chickens off of trees. It's great, but it's like you can't just flip a switch and that happens. You have to get there somehow. So like, because his beef was all these philosophers are trying to go from point A to point C. But there's no point B. Like, what's the actual thing that you do?
Point B has to get over the insurmountable obstacle of human nature.
And humans don't just do shit. You have to make them do stuff. So inevitably, people are gonna have to die. There's gonna be some shit's gonna happen. Yeah. It's pretty messy.
That's what he meant when he said no revolution can happen without bloodletting.
Exactly. It's very hard. Also, if someone has a lot of power, there's no nice way to ask them to release it. You can't be like, hey, what's up, President of the United States? Can you just like dismantle the government? I don't like it anymore. They would kill you. That's the whole point. Like, you can't do that.
I mean, what Gandhi did was amazing because his nonviolent resistance worked, but because the British were so insecure and they just got embarrassed. They were just like went rosy in the face and like, never mind. We seem like assholes, don't we?
Oh my god.
All right. They like the country happened to have a conscience. There's a famous letter he wrote to Hitler saying there needs to be peace, and then he pleaded with the people that Hitler was attacking, saying nonviolent resistance is the way to combat the Nazis. That's
maybe not the best advice. No, because the Nazis don't care about their image. They're like, they're like, oh, we're not embarrassed, so we won't kill you.
It was very different.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is that like your oppressor has to have some kind of conscience for you to be able to like do that. But if they don't have a conscience, you're kind of fucked.
Yeah, I mean, on an individual basis, that works really well. Or just if acting as if is a really good. I mean, even with big. Dictatorships, big despotisms. Yeah. I mean, Milosevic was partly toppled by the satirists of that country.
Oh, in the Yugoslav war, yeah. Or like the anti-war movement in the U.S. Like that was a huge Vietnam. That was like huge. Yeah, big deal.
But acting as if and like sarcasm has so much to do with changing a culture, and just like do this. Okay, I guess. I mean, it doesn't make any sense because of this, but yes, I will. Just pretending you're going along with it and then commenting upon it by doing it is interesting. I mean, just allowing it to happen is really, really interesting. But it's just such a odd way to direct anger. But that alone usually doesn't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
That can
At
help.
some point, you have to shoot somebody. That's pretty much what we found.
Yeah.
Is how it works.
It's just gotta be.
History's not fun. I mean,
Nope.
Yeah.
And then, like, I was watching the movie Witness with Harrison Ford the other day. Beautiful.
I haven't seen that one.
Beautiful movie, by the way. He got an Oscar nomination for
What
it.
year is this?
90s.
Oh, okay.
I think early 90s.
Hell yeah.
When at the peak of those very produced movies, where the producers knew what was interesting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is this string music the entire time? Like, it's like who has is everyone in this movie has cancer? Is this what's going on? What is happening? Yeah.
But it has some of the best scenes. But the deal is that Harrison Ford is a cop, and then there's this Amish boy in a train station, and then the Amish boy witnesses a murder.
Oh, okay.
And then a murder of a cop, and then Harrison Ford's like keeping them in civilization so that he can interview the boy, and the mom the whole time is like, we need to leave, we can't be here, this is wrong to detain us like this, and he's just kind of an asshole. He's like, no, I'm gonna do it until I positively identify this killer. So he's like driving the boy around. It's really interesting, but eventually he finds out that like other cops had killed this cop, and now that he wants to expose them, he's going to be killed too. So he has to escape into Amish society, and he has to like live with them. And it's a beautiful story.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but at one point, one of the Amish people says, like, violence isn't the answer. That's one way of getting things done, but there are other ways. There's always another way. That's never the only option, and that's a very seductive idea.
Yeah, it's good if it's there. You should do it if it's there.
Yeah.
Like, if nonviolence is an option, you should take it. But if it's not, then it's okay to, be like, all right, well, we gotta do some.
I mean, at some point you have to wonder about the idea behind all this negotiation with North Korea.
Yeah.
Like, do you really think it's gonna work? Like, has it worked?
Well, actually, like one of my favorite movies is the Battle of Algiers. That's like it's like an incredible movie.
Dum dum dum.
Yeah.
Dum dum dum.
Oh man, it's so good. But it's such a cool, because the main theme of it is like, what is the length of, like, how far do you have to go to get your freedom?
Yeah.
Because it's about like the French occupation of Algeria in like the 50s, and it's like shot in like documentary style. It's amazing, but it's really cool because like they do start in a non-violent way. They protest, but the French like start torturing them and imprisoning them. So then they start like protesting it more. They get tortured, and then they resort to like terrorism. They blow up restaurants and like start shooting cops and stuff. And then at some point there's a really good speech when the guy's like, like these acts of terrorism that we've been doing can only go so far. At some point, we have to actually go on a diplomatic level and like speak to the the UN and be a nation of like Algerians, and that's actually how they win. They have this like and eventually they actually do get independence from France, and so it's like it did pay off, which is like. It's such an interesting topic, though, of like what level of violence is actually necessary or good to get to a meet. It's interesting, but great movie. Yeah.
Another Harrison Ford movie I'm watching right now, Patriot Games.
We're just going on a Harrison Ford.
Yeah, he's the only thing.
Okay,
he's the only thing that makes sense anymore.
We're just watching Harrison Ford.
Saturday, I watched 3 Harrison Ford movies. I watched.
Last week you were showing me clips of him on Conan. So
I'm obsessed with him.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with him.
Such a random. I'm not random, but it's like
ever since I was a kid, he's been like my hero. Indiana Jones is the thing I most wanted to be my whole life.
Harrison Ford should disown his shitty son, and you should become his son.
Yes.
Yeah, that
I
awful
think so.
greaseball that is his son.
If he only knows how devotional I would be.
What's the son's name again? The shitty son?
Malcolm Ford.
Oh, Malcolm. That doesn't even fit. Malcolm Ford.
Yeah, he's just an annoying man.
But that's not a cool. The only Malcolm in the Middle or Malcolm X. Those are the only two good Malcolms.
Malcolm Ford.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you could just see Harrison Ford's radiant features warped in that man's face.
I know, it's like, I can see your dad, but it's covered in a layer of shit. It's like, it's not, it's what happened, I don't understand.
Yeah, and then Harrison...
It's terrible.
Harrison Ford has this childlikeness about how he acts pretty much everything.
Oh, it's cool as
and
fuck.
that also is how he is in real life, and then people talk about it. Like, that's why I think it's so interesting, is that he's just so unguarded when he acts.
I bet if this was like 200 years ago, Harrison Ford would be like a Civil War general. Like he would have the kind of confidence to be like leading the North. He'd be like,
yeah. Well, when you
he'd be like Grant or something.
Yeah, he's so matter of fact and terse about things. He doesn't like small talk. He thinks it's so annoying, and just I think the way he conducts himself is just so interesting. I would like to be like that because he just knows what has to be done.
That's my dream, is to be a laconic Spartan guy who just like. I just walk into a room, I say nothing because I just don't have to. Yeah. And then when someone asks me a question, I respond with exactly how many words. But instead, I walk in, I'm like, hey, what's going on? And then like I just bore everybody.
But the strange thing about him is that he's a performer and he's not needy at all.
No, exactly.
That's what's so interesting to me, is that he's the biggest actor of all time.
I'll
basically.
say this: if there is an American Revolution, he'll probably survive the guillotine.
Yeah,
he's not gonna get killed.
I mean, but when he's on comedy shows, he's just so much more assured than anyone I've ever seen. And that just even I mean, he's anxious, but that's just because of how he is. But he's just sure of how he seems all the time. Oh man! And because of that. He just knows his personality, and he's funnier than all the comedians who interview him every time.
I think it's why Indiana Jones is like the perfect role for him. Yeah. He just gets to do like everything he's good at in a movie. Like, well,
Steven Spielberg said that is Harrison Ford. That's just him.
That's just him. Yeah. He's just like a cool, wisecracking guy that smooches women.
Yeah.
From all over the world. It's awesome.
Yeah, and he's got this wry humor about him.
I will never be that. God damn it.
There's such an interesting humor in the Indiana Jones movies where he's doing all these crazy things, and there's just so much danger, and you can tell he's so stressed, and something about that is so funny.
Well, it's a classic scene where like the Egyptian guy is like has like a sword. He pulls out a sword and just shoots him. That's classic Harrison Ford. Yeah. Like he probably suggested that. He was like, "Can I just shoot the guy?" He
did. That was his idea.
There we go.
That was. He was actually sick that day, so he didn't want it. They actually choreographed a huge fight scene, and he had the flu, so he improvised. I just pulled it out, and then the guy fell down because he was a good improviser.
Dude, or when the crazy Nazi guy is like cornering him and just like kills him with a propeller of a plane. that gave me nightmares as a kid. That death, I was like horrified by that.
The guy with the huge like silly mustache.
Yeah. Oh man! Also, dude, Harrison Ford, he fought the Nazis in 3 different movies. Great guy.
Yeah.
So.
There's a good joke I heard. It was like where it's Harrison Ford. I think it's a meme. It's just Harrison Ford punching a Nazi. He's like, "I'm here to kill Nazis and teach the humanities," and they just cut funding to the humanities.
I gotta say, he looks like a shitty ass teacher though. That guy never taught anything.
Yeah.
He was like banging all the students, and like they're all like, because there's that scene where they go to his office and all the students are like fucking dripping over him. Yeah. And he's just like, "All right, girls, that's enough. I'm going to Africa now." Yeah. Oh,
I'm going to Africa now.
Dude, it was funny too because like Indiana Jones, it takes place in the 30s, not the 40s. So like no one's at war with Germany at that point. So the Nazis are just like these pesky people, like they're not even at war with them.
I know.
But he was fighting the Nazis before World War II, so he deserves some credit.
It belongs in a museum.
Yeah, it belongs in a museum. You know what sucks is you can't be that guy anymore. You can't be an Indiana Jones. That's like my dream, is to wear like the safari clothing and like a cool shirt and like a rope, and just be like swashbuckling around pyramids and tombs. You can't. Everyone does. The world's too settled now. Maybe the pastoral theory is right. Yeah. Maybe we should go back to nativism.
There have been so few like really good like adventure games. Uncharted comes close.
Sick. Uncharted is sick.
That's Uncharted gets the closest. Actually, there's an old PS2 game of Indiana Jones called Indiana Jones is the Emperor's Tomb, which is that comes the closest.
The Tomb Raider games, the new ones are sick too.
Yeah, I haven't played them.
Oh, they're great. It's head to head with Uncharted. But, yeah, they're great.
Oh, I'd play those.
No, because Uncharted is just you're just playing an Indiana Jones movie. That's the whole.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very cinematic, and it's such a closed system, which is what's so interesting. At every point, the developers knew exactly what was going to happen.
Yeah, dude, Naughty Dog, the fucking best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they're so good at leading. They're so good at leading. They don't let you free, but you don't care.
Yeah, because it's not linear. Well, it's very linear, but it makes you feel like it's not linear, which is great. No, it's funny too because it's a shame that like there's no more mysteries on Earth really. Mm-hmm. Like if we went to like the tomb of Tutankhamun, there'd be like a fucking McDonald's there. It's already been. Everything's been found. We can't find it.
Yeah. There's nothing to explore. Imagine the joy of Lewis and Clark when they were coming into Montana and just looking at all the foliage,
the valley, and all
and
the
then they hear
animals.
the Great Falls. They said they could hear it from 5 miles out.
That's awesome. Also, all the animals over in the U.S. would be cool. Like you just walk around as buffaloes and shit, and, like horses. And,
Yeah,
that'd
it
be
just
cool. Yeah.
at every point, just what the fuck is that? Look at.
Dude, honestly, like it's a shame they call it because like also the U.S. would have been cool if there were Native Americans everywhere. Like that'd be cool if there were like more Native Americans than
Yeah.
us, like than new Americans or whatever.
It was just those,
That'd be
you know.
sick. Yeah, I would love that. But
Geno-
it's a shame. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, genocide did a lot of it, but also disease killed so
Yeah.
many,
It's a
so many
shame.
people.
Yeah. I know
Ugh.
it's weird to think what the world would be like. I don't know. Well, it's really funny because you brought up the nativism thing. There's a really famous series of paintings. Actually, one of them is our cover photo, but it's called The Course of Empire.
Yeah.
It's done by this guy named Thomas Cole, who was this painter in America. Who was he was in New York in like the 1800s when all that like the what is it transcendentalism, that whole wave was going on. So he was like in that whole thing. But like it's kind of a cool painting series where it's like 5 parts. So it starts with the primal state where it's just apes and primitive humans, and then it's like the pastoral state where it's like there's like one little temple and everyone's still kind of in robes, and then there's like the height of empire where it's Rome, there's like fucking huge colossi. And everyone's like hanging out, but then that's like the tipping point because everyone's having too much fun, and then the next one is called the destruction, and they're getting fucking killed by pirates, and then it's like so violent, and then the last one's called desolation. There's this one little pillar with like a vine on it, and everyone's dead.
Yeah.
And it's just like shows how like one civilization goes up and down, like
There's some great.
it's a sick painting series. I love it. Yeah.
There's some great etchings by Piranesi about that for he did them for Gibbon's Decline and Fall. They're beautiful illustrations.
The cover art for Decline and Fall is sick. Yeah.
Yeah. It just
That's the nerdiest shit I've ever said. So keep going.
Yeah, it's just Roman ruins and like
I love a good Roman ruin though. That's
It's the etchings are all Roman ruins and English tourists in tricorn hats walking around them.
Yeah.
That's all it is, and it's beautiful.
That's always been my favorite thing. Like in Game of Thrones, there was like the Romans in Game of Thrones or whatever. I'm not much of a Game of Thrones guy, but like they had like the Romans of that world, and like they had this great civilization. Now it's just reduced to like a column.
Yeah.
But you know what sucks is if America goes down, all our shit's made of concrete. Nothing's gonna be around.
No.
Statue of Liberty maybe.
That'd be interesting.
Statue of
I
Liberty.
think I don't know. I've heard that The Day After Tomorrow was a shitty movie, but
it's hilarious. No, it's not a bad movie. It's great, and you should
Is it?
definitely know it's bad, but it's worth watching.
Oh.
It's really funny. Well, it's a bad movie because like nature has like a conscience. So like people who are like shitty people get killed by tornadoes, and then like good people somehow don't get killed. You know what I mean? Like it's very selective with who dies. It's really funny. No, it's great. It has Dennis Quaid and Shia LaBeouf.
Really?
No,
Oh,
Gyllenhaal.
Oh, J.
Yeah, I
Gyllenhaal.
think yeah.
Okay.
One of those guys.
Yeah, but the cover with the Statue of Liberty in the water up to her head is very affecting.
I know.
Very powerful.
Dude, it looks like North Korean propaganda. Like it looks
It does.
like propaganda against the U.S. It's
Yeah.
like if you just made the water into like red blood or something, and like the
Can we talk about how some propaganda art is just really good?
No, that's the whole thing. Propaganda is you can appreciate it. It's really funny too when people get really defensive if you say something's propaganda.
Yeah.
It's like you can just make propaganda. It's not wrong to make propaganda.
No.
You know what I mean? Like you can make some. It's not bad.
Orwell has a famous essay called "All Art is Propaganda,"
Yeah.
which everyone should read.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Unless the only bad propaganda is like if it's made by Goebbels, then maybe don't.
Goebbels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That guy was not a good.
Yeah. Not a good man.
Not
My
a good
grandpa
man.
would sing a song about how many balls different Nazis had. that's I guess a classic in England. He's like, and Goebbels had nobles. It all is how it ends.
Goebbels and nobles.
I think it's a Noel Coward
Dude, that's
song.
so fucking funny.
And Goebbels and nobles and all.
Speaking of movie, have you seen Downfall? The Downfall?
Yeah.
Movie? I was gonna say the Goebbels guy that plays Goebbels in that movie is so terrifying because
Yeah.
he kills his kids and like. And his wife is like nuts. He's like, I can't imagine my children living in a non-Nazi society.
That is such an important movie.
That's a great movie.
I feel like you're not culturally literate unless you've seen that.
Yeah, it's fucked up. Well, it's fucked up. It's like it shows how awful and depraved they were, and like it's great.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It Orson Welles' story is interesting about how, as a little kid, because he was just in a upper class family, he met all these heads of state, and he said, "Oh, it was Gore Vidal who walked by Mussolini at an opera, I think, and he's like, and I was overcome with the amount of perfume he was wearing." But
dude, Mussolini was dumb as shit. Like it's like they caught him and his mistress like spit on him and stuff. Like, oh my god, he's an idiot.
Yeah.
God. Also, like, how do you invade Ethiopia and like not win? Like he couldn't win.
Yeah.
Like they had their air forces like.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
But the only like conservative commentator I like much besides the early Kevin Williamson is Michael Medved, who started as a movie reviewer and now he's a radio host, but he's just a really smart guy. Except he's turned pretty establishment. It's really sad. But he was like one of the people who were totally against Trump. Like he wouldn't vote for Trump. He'd never voted third party and did because of Trump.
Oh damn.
And he just like couldn't bring himself to do it. But before Trump was elected, he was talking about, look at his speeches. This is a fascist man.
Yeah.
Look at his speeches.
No, I was gonna say, like anyone who does this, if you're watching, if anyone who does this hand motion or this is a bad sign.
And he would draw connections to Mussolini. He's like, when he folded his arms and nodded his head like that, that's a Mussolini body language.
Oh yeah, no, it's exactly.
Yeah. and then now he's taking calls. He's like, he says things like, people who don't think Trump has done anything in office, call me right now, and then he'll argue with them. But yeah, but
oh man,
he's such a debater, which is why his show's fun. It's just he'll argue and argue and argue.
Oh shit, we forgot to put poor Voltaire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I was saying is, well,
Yeah.
I like the tangent we went on about I think, what better thing to talk about than when is violence justified? You know?
Exactly.
I mean, but I was talking about Patriot Games where he shoots Sean Bean's brother at the beginning, and then he's on trial, and this this English barrister is saying, is like, did you think you had any other recourse? He's like, well, if I had time to think, I would have considered those options. So you didn't think, sir. You didn't think.
Okay. Also, I love those movies where like they have like the old British court where it's always like guys in the white curl things, and then like someone will say some controversial comment and everyone just starts squawking like a bunch of turkeys, like, and like it's like order, and I'm like,
Order.
I say, sir, you may not.
There's just this ineffectual mediator just can't keep order.
Can't. Everyone's like, what's going
on?
Order. It's like, this is not a very effective system, guys. This is not good.
Yeah. We're at an hour 20 right now.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Jesus, that was a tear.
We got so much.
I think we had a lot of built-up just angst.
Yeah, we did.
It was good. I think that was good. I think it was a good one.
I think it was so good.
Good riff.
I mean, it just went the whole time.
Yeah, honestly, we had a lot of good. I think it was a good discussion. But like, if you have any viewpoints, like, definitely send them in. Like, we're open to
Send them in. We'll argue with them.
Yeah.
Here, and then you won't get to say anything back.
Yeah, like I'm sure I said some stuff that was incorrect or dumb. So
me
feel free to let us know. And yeah, we'll start. Like, honestly, we should start posting like any books or stuff. Or we'll post it on there if you're curious. So that happened for this week. We'll be back next week. So yeah, hope you enjoy this one. But yeah, be sure to follow us on all the stuff. You can find us on like any of those podcasting places. We're also on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. Just search That Happened Pod or That Hap Pod on Twitter. And yeah, go read a history book. Anyway, enjoy your 2020s.
Do
all
it.
right, see you guys.
Love you. Bye.